The sun blazed mercilessly over the Arizona territory, turning the landscape into a furnace of dust and stone. Three men lay sprawled in the dirt, their blood darkening the parched earth. Cole Morgan holstered his Colt single-action army, the metal still warm against his hip. The smell of gunpowder hung in the air, mingling with the copper scent of blood. "Told you boys to turn around," Cole muttered to the corpses. "Rustlers don't last long on Diamond Creek Trail." Cole wiped sweat from his brow, squinting at the horizon. 35 years had etched deep lines around his eyes, eyes that had witnessed too much death since Shiloh. The war had officially ended a decade ago, but for men like him, the fighting never truly stopped. It just changed battlefields. His horse nickered nervously as vultures began circling overhead. Cole was about to mount up when he spotted it. An abandoned wagon tilted awkwardly against the horizon, one wheel splintered and useless. Probably just another failed homesteader, he thought, turning his horse toward the main trail. That's when he heard it, a sound so faint it barely carried on the hot wind. A moan. Cole approached cautiously, his hand never straying far from his holster. The wagon's canvas was sun-bleached and torn. The smell hit him first. Blood, sweat, and fear. Inside, a woman lay crumpled, wrists and ankles bound with rope. Her dress was torn, her skin blistered from the sun. For a moment, he thought she was dead. Then her eyes fluttered open, clouded with pain. "I beg you, it hurts so bad," she whispered, voice cracked from thirst. Cole froze, then said softly, "It'll be quick." His knife sliced through the ropes with practiced precision. He caught her as she collapsed, her body frighteningly light against his arms. The rope had cut deep, leaving angry red welts across her pale skin. "How long have you been out here?" he asked, pressing his canteen to her cracked lips. She drank feebly, water spilling down her chin. 2 days, maybe 3. Cole's jaw tightened as he examined the knots that had bound her, a distinctive pattern he recognized immediately. Blackwood Ranch. Victor Blackwood's men had a signature way of tying their cattle, and apparently their victims. As he lifted her onto his horse, something metallic fell from her pocket, a military badge, tarnished but unmistakable. Union Army, 10th Illinois Infantry. Cole stared at it, memories flooding back like a river breaking through a dam. The badge belonged to Lieutenant James Mitchell. Cole had fought alongside him at Antietam. Mitchell had saved his life before taking a Confederate bullet to the chest. "Where did you get this?" Cole demanded, his voice suddenly hard. "My father," she whispered. "James Mitchell." Cole's expression softened imperceptibly. "Your name?" "Sarah. Sarah Mitchell." The ride back to Cole's cabin was silent. Sarah drifted in and out of consciousness, her body slumped against his chest. Cole's mind churned with memories of James Mitchell. A good man, a brave soldier, the kind who believed in justice, the kind who died for it. 3 hours later, Sarah sat wrapped in a blanket before the fire in Cole's cabin. Color had returned to her cheeks, though her eyes remained wary. Cole set a plate of beans and cornbread before her. "My father spoke of you," she said you were the bravest man he ever knew." Cole's laugh was hollow. "Your father saw what he wanted to see." He sat across from her, cleaning his revolver with methodical precision. "What brought James Mitchell's daughter to Diamondback Valley?" Sarah studied the flames. "I came to teach. Boston schools have no place for a woman with opinions. When the Blackwood family advertised for a teacher, it seemed perfect." Her hands trembled slightly. "Until Victor Blackwood decided teaching wasn't all I was good for." Cole's hand stilled on his gun. "What happened?" "He came to the schoolhouse late, drunk. When I refused him, he became insistent." Her voice hardened. "I struck him with a lamp. His wife found us. Me standing over him, blood on his face. She believed I had tried to seduce him." "And they left you to die for it," Cole finished, a cold fury building in his chest. Sarah nodded. Eleanor Blackwood watched as they tied me, said it would teach me shame. Cole had seen that kind of justice before, the kind powerful men dispensed when crossed. It was why he'd retreated to this isolated ranch after the war, after what happened to his wife. The law was just a word out here, as substantial as dust in the wind. You'll be safe here tonight, he said, rising to check the windows. Tomorrow. The window exploded inward, glass shards flying like deadly rain. Cole tackled Sarah to the floor as a second bullet splintered the door frame where his head had been moments before. In one fluid motion, he rolled to the window, Colt already drawn. Through his spyglass, he caught the glint of a rifle barrel on the distant ridge. One of Blackwood's men. Cole took careful aim and fired. The distant figure jerked, then scrambled for cover. "They know I'm alive," Sarah whispered, fear edging her voice. Cole checked his ammunition. "They know you're alive. Now they know you're not alone." The night passed in tense silence. By dawn, Cole had transformed his modest cabin into a fortress. Sarah watched as he moved with the efficient precision of a man who had fortified positions many times before. "Have you always lived like this? Ready for war?" she asked. Cole hammered another board across a window. "The war never ended, Miss Mitchell. Just changed who was fighting it." He handed her his Winchester Model 1866. "Ever fired one of these?" Sarah took the rifle, her hand steady now. "My father taught me. Said a woman alone needs to shoot straight." "Smart man, your father." Cole demonstrated the loading mechanism. "This lever action will give you 15 shots before reloading. Aim for center mass, no fancy shooting." "Will they come today?" she asked, working the lever smoothly. Cole nodded toward the horizon, where dust clouds were already rising. "They're already on their way." His face darkened. "I've seen men like Blackwood before, men who think they own everything. Land, law, people." "You sound like you know him well," Sarah observed. Cole's eyes took on a distant look. "I know his kind. After the war, I married a woman named Rebecca. We settled in Missouri, tried to build something." His voice grew tight. "The local judge wanted our land for a railroad spur. When we refused to sell, he had her killed. Made it look like a robbery." Sarah's eyes widened. "What did you do?" "What the law wouldn't." Cole checked his ammunition belt. "He had an accident. Fell from his horse with 3 bullets in his chest." He met Sarah's gaze. "That's when I learned that out here, justice doesn't wear a badge. It wears a gun." 6 riders appeared on the ridge by mid-morning, silhouettes shimmering in the heat. At their center rode a figure whose very posture spoke of arrogance. Victor Blackwood. Even at this distance, Cole could make out the fine cut of his suit, the silver gleam of his saddle horn. "Stay inside," Cole ordered Sarah, stepping onto the porch, rifle held casually across his body. Blackwood reined in 20 yards from the cabin. His men fanned out behind him. His face was handsome in a hard way, with a thick mustache and cold eyes that had likely never known doubt, a former Union officer who'd carved out an empire in the post-war chaos. "Morgan," Blackwood called, his voice carrying the refined accent of Eastern privilege. "I see you found something that belongs to me." "Didn't realize you were in the slave trade, Blackwood," Cole replied evenly. Blackwood's smile didn't reach his eyes. "That woman is a thief and a liar. Tried to seduce me, then stole from my wife's jewelry box when I refused her advances." "That's not true." Sarah had appeared in the doorway, her face flushed with anger. Cole didn't take his eyes off Blackwood. "Funny how a school teacher overpowered you, tied herself up, and left herself to die in the desert, all to steal some trinkets." Blackwood's jaw tightened. "I didn't come to debate with a ranch hand. Send her out, and we'll forget this unpleasantness." "I saw the knots, Victor." Cole's voice dropped dangerously. "Same ones your men use on your cattle. Same ones I saw at Shiloh when your interrogators worked over Confederate prisoners." Blackwood's eyes narrowed with sudden recognition. Lieutenant Cole Morgan, I remember you now. Always too righteous for your own good. A cruel smile played across his lips. Still fighting the old war? I thought you'd learned your lesson after what happened to that pretty wife of yours. Cole's finger tightened imperceptibly on his trigger. You know about Rebecca? This is a small territory, Morgan. Word travels, especially about men who take the law into their own hands. Blackwood straightened in his saddle. The judge in Missouri was my cousin. The revelation hit Cole like a physical blow. All these years he'd thought he'd escaped his past, only to find it waiting for him in this desert hell. Take him, Blackwood ordered his men. What followed was a symphony of violence. The first rider barely cleared his holster before Cole's rifle barked, sending him tumbling from his saddle. Cole rolled behind a water barrel as bullets splintered wood around him. Inside the cabin, Sarah fired through a narrow window, her shots measured and precise. One of Blackwood's men screamed as a bullet found his thigh. Another took a round through the shoulder. The exchange lasted less than a minute, but the air hung heavy with gun smoke and the copper scent of blood. Cole felt the burning slice of a bullet across his upper arm but kept firing. His mind had slipped into the cold, calculating state he'd known during the war. Each shot deliberate, each movement economical. Enough, Blackwood shouted as a third man fell. This isn't over, Morgan. No man crosses Victor Blackwood and lives to boast about it. They retreated in a cloud of dust, carrying their wounded. Cole watched until they disappeared over the ridge before allowing himself to feel the fire in his arm. Sarah tended his wound with steady hands, using a needle and whiskey to close the gash. They'll be back, she said, not a question, but a certainty. With more men, Cole agreed, we need supplies and information. The town of Diamondback sat like a scab in the desert's hide, a collection of weathered buildings clinging to existence around a dusty main street. Cole and Sarah rode in cautiously the next day, his arm throbbing beneath its bandage. The Silver Spur Saloon smelled of cheap whiskey and broken dreams. Behind the bar stood Jake Thompson, a mountain of a man with a braided beard and hands like ham hocks. His face split into a grin at the sight of Cole. Thought you'd become a damn hermit, he boomed, sliding a glass across the bar. Almost was, Cole replied, keeping his voice low. Need information, Jake. About Blackwood. Jake's expression darkened. He glanced around before leaning closer. Been buying up every small ranch that borders the creek. Those that won't sell have accidents. 3 properties burned in the last month. Why the sudden interest in land? Cole asked. Jake tapped a weathered newspaper. Railroads coming through. Northern Pacific Spur Line. Man who controls the water in this valley controls everything when those tracks arrive. Sarah leaned forward. He's stealing people's land for the railroad? Smart woman, Jake nodded approvingly. Blackwood's already made deals with the railroad men. They need water for the steam engines. He's sitting on the only reliable source in 50 miles. Cole cursed under his breath. It explained everything. Blackwood's increased aggression, the pressure on smaller ranchers. The valley was about to become valuable, and Victor Blackwood intended to own every inch of it. The saloon doors swung open, casting harsh sunlight across the floor. Sheriff Wallace stood silhouetted in the doorway, his star catching the light. Behind him loomed the unmistakable figure of Victor Blackwood. Cole Morgan, the sheriff drawled, hand resting on his holster. You're wanted for the murder of 3 men on Diamond Creek Trail yesterday morning. Cole stayed perfectly still. Self-defense, Sheriff. They drew first. Not how I heard it, Wallace replied. Those were my deputies, investigating cattle theft. Blackwood here is my witness. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. The rustlers had been Blackwood's men all along, or at least they were now that they were dead and couldn't contradict the story. This is absurd, Sarah protested. He's lying. The sheriff's eyes flicked to her dismissively. And you'd be the Boston school marm who tried to seduce a married man? Your testimony won't count for much, miss. Cole calculated his odds. 6 men, including the sheriff and Blackwood, all armed. Even if he drew now, Sarah would be caught in the crossfire. Slowly, deliberately, he placed his gun on the bar. Sarah, go with Jake, he said quietly. Jake, get her out of here. Jake nodded almost imperceptibly, his massive hand closing around Sarah's arm. Come on, miss. This ain't your fight. It is my fight, she hissed, but allowed Jake to pull her toward the back door. The last thing Cole saw before the sheriff's men surrounded him was Sarah's face, fierce and determined, framed in the doorway. Then the butt of a pistol crashed against his temple, and darkness claimed him. Cole awoke to the acrid smell of damp straw and human misery. Diamondback's jail was little more than a stone box with iron bars, 2 cells, a desk, in the ever-present desert heat. Blood had dried on his face and his shoulders ached from being wrenched behind him. Sheriff Wallace sat at his desk, boots propped up, cleaning his fingernails with a knife. Comfortable, Morgan? Cole tested his shackles. Solid. When's the hanging, Wallace? Or are you waiting for Blackwood's permission? The sheriff smiled thinly. Dawn tomorrow. Nothing personal, just business. How much did he pay you? Cole asked. Must have been a lot to sell your badge. Something like shame flickered across Wallace's face, quickly replaced by hardness. You don't understand what's coming to this valley. The railroad changes everything. A man either profits or gets crushed. And Sarah Mitchell was leaving her to die in the desert business too? The sheriff avoided his gaze. I don't ask questions about Blackwood's methods, neither should you. Night fell with merciful coolness. The sheriff departed, leaving a deputy dozing at the desk. Cole worked methodically at his shackles, but they held firm. His thoughts turned to Sarah. Had she escaped, or had Blackwood's men found her? The soft click of the outer door interrupted his thoughts. The deputy's hand moved to his gun, then relaxed as Eleanor Blackwood stepped into the dim lamplight. Her face was aristocratic but tired, lined with the particular weariness that comes from years of looking away. Mrs. Blackwood, the deputy nodded respectfully. Sheriff's not here. I'm not looking for the sheriff, she replied, her voice cultured but firm. I need a moment with the prisoner. My husband wants information before tomorrow's proceedings. The deputy hesitated, then shrugged. Yes, ma'am. I'll be outside if you need anything. When the door closed behind him, Eleanor approached Cole's cell. She was still beautiful, though hardened by the frontier and whatever lay between her and her husband. You're a difficult man to kill, Mr. Morgan, she said quietly. Cole met her gaze steadily. Your husband's tried before. He'll have to try harder. Victor is, she paused, choosing her words carefully, not the man I married, or perhaps he always was, and I refused to see it. From her sleeve, she withdrew a small key. The school teacher wasn't the first. There have been others. Women who caught his eye, then disappeared. Cole's expression remained neutral. Why are you here, Mrs. Blackwood? Eleanor's hand trembled slightly as she passed the key through the bars. I'm not doing this for you or for her. I'm doing it for justice. From her other sleeve came a small derringer. It's loaded. 1 shot. Make it count. Cole took the key, studying her face. He'll know it was you. A bitter smile crossed her lips. By morning, I'll be on a stage to San Francisco. My sister lives there. She pressed a leather-bound journal through the bars. This is Victor's private ledger. Every bribe, every piece of land stolen, every accident arranged. Give it to someone who matters. As she turned to leave, Cole called softly, Why now, Mrs. Blackwood? After all this time? Eleanor paused at the door, her back still straight despite everything. Because I saw myself in that girl's eyes, what I used to be before I started looking away, before Victor killed that part of me. Then she was gone, like a ghost dissolving into the night. True to Eleanor's word, by midnight the deputy was slumped over the desk, snoring loudly. The key worked smoothly in Cole's shackles. He retrieved his effects from the desk drawer, taking the deputy's gun for good measure. Outside, the desert night was alive with stars. Cole moved through shadows, avoiding the occasional late-night drinker. At the edge of town, a familiar figure waited with 3 horses. "Took you long enough," Jake grinned, his teeth white in the darkness. Sarah stepped forward, relief evident in her posture. "We thought they'd killed you." "Not yet," Cole said, checking the ammunition in his recovered Colt. "Where can we go?" Jake's expression turned serious. "My brother has a place in the hills, but that's not why we're here." He nodded to the ledger in Cole's hand. Eleanor Blackwood told Sarah what she was planning. "She's risking everything." "This is enough to hang Blackwood 10 times over," Cole said, leafing through the pages. "If we can get it to a federal judge," Sarah added, "but Blackwood owns the local law." "There's more," Jake said grimly. "Blackwood's meeting with railroad investors tomorrow at his ranch. Every important man in the territory will be there, including Judge Harmon from Santa Fe." Cole looked up sharply. "A federal judge? At Blackwood's ranch?" "Blackwood doesn't know Harmon's reputation. Man's known as Hanging Harmon, incorruptible as they come." Cole closed the ledger, decision made. "Then we bring the evidence to him. How many men does Blackwood have?" "At least 15 gunmen, plus the sheriff and his deputies." Cole's eyes narrowed. "Then we need more men." Dawn found them in a secluded canyon 5 miles from Blackwood Ranch. Around a small fire sat the most unlikely army the territory had ever seen. 7 small ranchers who'd been terrorized by Blackwood. Jake's brother with his 3 sons, and a grizzled old buffalo hunter who simply hated rich eastern bastards. Cole laid out the plan, using sticks to map the ranch layout. Blackwood will be showcasing his empire. Security will be visible but not overwhelming. He won't want to frighten his investors. One of the ranchers, a hard-faced man named Peterson, spat into the fire. 15 guns against 13 of us? Those ain't good odds, Morgan." "We don't need to win a war," Cole replied. "Just create enough chaos to get the ledger to Judge Harmon. Once he sees what's in here, Blackwood is finished." The men nodded grimly, checking their weapons one final time. Sarah approached Cole as the others prepared. "I'm coming too." Cole started to object, then saw the determination in her eyes, the same look her father had worn at Antietam. He simply nodded. "Stay with Jake. If things go wrong, ride hard and don't look back." The Blackwood Ranch sprawled across the valley floor like a small kingdom. A grand house stood on a rise, surrounded by barns and bunkhouses. From their position on the ridge, Cole could see carriages and fine horses in the courtyard. Men in expensive suits mingled on the veranda, drinking champagne as Blackwood gestured expansively toward the distant mountains. "Now," Cole said quietly. The attack came from 3 directions simultaneously. Cole and 3 men approached from the east, using the morning sun to blind the sentries. Jake and his group came from the north, while Peterson led his ranchers from the south. The first shots caused pandemonium. Investors dove for cover as Blackwood's men returned fire. Cole moved methodically through the chaos, his military training evident in every precise movement. He wasn't aiming to kill, just to create enough confusion to reach the house where Harmon would be. Sheriff Wallace appeared on the porch, revolver drawn. His eyes widened at the sight of Cole. "How the hell?" Cole's bullet took him in the shoulder, spinning him into the dirt. "Stay down, Sheriff. It's over." Inside the house, Cole found Victor Blackwood in his study, desperately stuffing papers into a safe. The businessman whirled at Cole's entrance, reaching for a shotgun propped against the desk. "Don't!" Cole warned, his Colt steady. Blackwood's face twisted with hatred. "You think this changes anything? I still own this valley. Men like me always win, Morgan." "Not today." Cole stepped closer. "It's over, Victor. Eleanor gave me your ledger. Every dirty deal, every murder, all of it." Fury and disbelief warred on Blackwood's face. "You're lying. Eleanor wouldn't dare." "She's gone, heading to California as we speak." Cole kept his gun trained on Blackwood. "She finally saw you for what you are." With a roar of rage, Blackwood lunged for the shotgun. Cole fired, the bullet catching Blackwood in the shoulder. The rancher staggered but stayed on his feet, swinging the shotgun around with his good arm. The blast shattered a bookcase behind Cole as he dove for cover. Blackwood worked the pump one-handed, advancing with murder in his eyes. "You took everything from me," Blackwood snarled. "My wife, my reputation, everything I built." "You took it from yourself," Cole replied, rolling to his feet. "Just like you took my wife." Understanding dawned in Blackwood's eyes. "Missouri, the judge was my cousin, and I'm his reckoning." Blackwood fired again, the shot going wide. Cole charged forward, tackling the larger man to the ground. The shotgun clattered away as they grappled on the expensive carpet. Blackwood was strong, but Cole fought with the pent-up fury of 10 years' vengeance. Their struggle carried them across the room, smashing into furniture. Blackwood's fist connected with Cole's jaw, sending him reeling. The rancher scrambled for a desk drawer, pulling out a revolver. Cole drew his knife and lunged. The blade sank deep into Blackwood's arm, causing him to drop the gun with a howl of pain. Cole pinned him against the desk, knife at his throat. "Do it!" Blackwood gasped. "Finish what you started in Missouri." Cole pressed the blade harder, drawing a thin line of blood. 10 years of hatred burned in his veins, demanding release. Then unexpectedly, he stepped back. "No," he said coldly. "You don't get to die that easy." The study door burst open. Judge Harmon stood there, a tall, severe man with steel-gray hair. Behind him, Sarah and Jake watched with tense expressions. "Judge Harmon," Cole said, not taking his eyes off Blackwood, "I believe you'll find this ledger interesting reading." The firefight outside had subsided. Blackwood's men, seeing their employer captured, had mostly surrendered. Those who resisted were quickly overwhelmed by the rancher's determination. As the territorial marshals, summoned by Judge Harmon, led a shackled Blackwood away, the businessman fixed Cole with a venomous glare. "This isn't over, Morgan," he hissed. Cole watched him go, a strange emptiness replacing the rage that had driven him for so long. "Yes, it is." 3 weeks later, Victor Blackwood stood trial in Santa Fe. Eleanor's testimony, combined with the damning evidence in the ledger, sealed his fate. The judge sentenced him to hang for multiple counts of murder, fraud, and corruption. Sheriff Wallace turned state's evidence, trading testimony for a reduced sentence of 20 years in territorial prison. The smaller ranchers formed a water rights association, ensuring equal access to the creek for all properties. 6 months later, Cole stood on the porch of his rebuilt ranch house. The valley spread before him, green with early spring growth. His cattle grazed peacefully by the creek, a creek now legally shared by all the ranchers in the valley. Sarah emerged from the house, her hair catching the morning light. She'd stayed to teach in the new schoolhouse the community had built in town. Their paths crossed often, at first by chance, later by choice. "The stage brought mail," she said, handing him a letter. "It's official. The railroad will build a spur line with a station at Diamondback. All the ranchers will have equal access." Cole nodded, satisfaction evident in his weathered face. The Blackwood case had reached all the way to Washington, prompting investigations into similar land schemes across the territory. Judge Harmon also sent this, Sarah added, holding out a silver star. He says Diamondback needs a real sheriff. Cole took the badge, turning it over in his hand. After years of distrusting the law, the irony wasn't lost on him. For a decade, he'd lived outside the law, carrying his own justice in a holster. Now he was being asked to become its embodiment. "Will you take it?" she asked, studying his face. Cole thought of Rebecca, of the justice he'd taken into his own hands. He thought of James Mitchell, who believed in something better. Finally, he thought of Sarah, who'd shown the same courage her father had. He pinned the badge to his shirt, feeling its weight. Not just the medal, but the responsibility it represented. "There are man's laws, and there are desert laws," he said quietly. "Sometimes a man has to stand between them to find justice." Sarah's hand found his, their fingers intertwining. "My father would be proud." In the distance, dust rose from the trail as riders approached. The regular patrol he'd established with the other ranchers? The territory was changing. The railroad would bring new challenges, new threats. But for the first time since the war, Cole Morgan felt ready to face whatever came next, not alone, but alongside people worth fighting for. As the morning sun climbed higher, Cole took one last look at the horizon, not searching for enemies, but looking toward the future. Rebecca could finally rest in peace. James Mitchell's daughter was safe, and perhaps in this harsh land where justice had once seemed as scarce as water, something good could finally grow.